Hui, this is a second visit to the studio. We're so happy to see you back here. And she wears many hats, of course, but the hat that she is wearing for here in the studio is about her role as the CEO of Caring SG, to talk about, the roles of caregivers, why it's so important, the challenges they face, and some new things happening for Caring SG. Welcome, Dr. Lim.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Welcome back. We love having you and chatting with you. We can't wait to find out more.
Yeah, we did have a very enlightening, very heartwarming chat with you all about caregiving. And why is it so important for caregivers to receive the right kind of training, education, support? I mean, how does that impact them as caregivers and also, more importantly, their charges?
Yes. Caregiving is something that nobody expects to land into a role, right? None of us kind of think that, one day I'll be caregiver. But actually, if you look at it, disability or mental health illness or seniors needing help, these are actually very common. It's about 19% of the population. So if you're alive, one day you'll meet up with a situation where you have to be a caregiver or you have to you are being cared for. When we grow old, we become demented, we need caregiver, or you meet a friend with caregivers. So for caregivers, a lot of times when we're given the caregiver role, we are not really prepared for it. Emotionally, skills, knowledge, and just the basic things about what does a caregiver do. So it's very important when our dependent or our loved ones are being given the diagnosis that we really look at how we can be skilled up and how we can be supported. So this is really important because research have shown that caregiver support and education will improve the outcomes of the person you're caring for in many ways. If you are trained, you'll be calmer, you'll be more skilled, then you will be able to care for your person that you love much better.
You started Caring SG because you were inspired by your own needs as a caregiver, to your own children. Can you share with us about disability in Singapore and why there needs to be more awareness, support and inclusion for caregivers of people with disabilities?
Yes, as I mentioned previously, caregiving is something that a lot of people will encounter in their life. And disability, like I mentioned, according to WHO definition, it really includes not just the physical disability, the sensory, like hearing or deafness, or visually impaired or blindness. There is also developmental disability like ADHD, autism, and it also includes mental health issues like the psychosocial disabilities and dementia. So if you look at this whole range of disabilities according to WHO definition, it's about 19% in Singapore.
Wow.
So that's a lot. But a lot of people think that disability is rare and you don't expect yourself or your loved ones to be disabled in life, but it is actually a reality in life. So I think when if you just look around your office, you will probably find someone who is dealing with disability in their life. And if we're more aware, then we are able to support them better. So I think this is something, awareness that Singaporeans need to have, is disability is really not that rare.
What do you think, the kind of support that caregivers of people with disabilities, what do you really feel they need?
Firstly is education. A lot of times disability, especially developmental disabilities like autism, ADHD, it's not something that we encounter as we're growing up, right? In the past, all these children are being put aside in special schools, and even now, right? So a lot of us grow up not really knowing what it's like. So we really need to find out more in terms of knowledge. And second thing is peer support. That's why I set up Caring SG, so that caregivers can find our own tribes. So if caregivers if parents, they have children with newly diagnosed developmental needs and they need to find someone who is on the same journey or have coped better, they can come to Caring SG. We help them to find support groups, right? And we also run training courses. So recently we launched a program called Step 1.
Hey!
Yes, it's the first step. And any parents who has children with developmental needs may not have diagnosis. They want to know more about how to cope with early intervention. What is the future going to be like? What are the basic things that parents can do at home to help your child to learn and grow? all these things are covered in step 1. So we really encourage parents to come along. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Congratulations on that.
Yeah, we're just logging on to your website, caring.sg, and there are so many useful resources there for, you can join as a member, you can find out more, you can, as a caregiver, for caregivers, what do you need to do, how you can connect with other people. So this is amazing, and thank you so much for championing this cause. Now, we are live on Facebook as well. Do join us there, facebook.com/1FM913. And if you have any questions for Dr. Lim this morning, chime on in via our comment section or WhatsApp us 88550913, where you also stand to pick up a $100 dining voucher from Ajia Okonomiyaki Restaurant.
Yummy. Hello, everyone. Very good morning. And once again, we're looking forward to this chat with you, having you back here in the studio with us, Dr. Lim Hong Hui, who wears many, many hats. I don't even know how you wear so many hats with all you do. You work not just as the CEO of, Caring SG, you are practicing, health practitioner as well. And you've also worked with Enable SG and many, many more charities and organizations. But today, the focus is on Caring SG because it is a topic of concern, caregiving. It's a tough role for caregivers. What can we do for them? How can we support them?
You mentioned that there was a very special occasion, big announcement yesterday in the news.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. So this month, November, is actually caregiving month, right? So yesterday, 8th of November, we started the first
So excited. Look at her getting so excited.
It's the care conference. Yeah. So we gathered more than 300 caregivers as well as care professionals in Singapore and internationally. We have speakers from US as well that talk about caregiving. So we do a lot of learning yesterday, the care conference, and this will be followed by 3 carnivals. The first one this Saturday in Enabling Village. Then the second one is in Kampong MRT next Saturday. Then followed by the next Saturday after that, on the 25th, is in Heartbeat Bedok. So all across Singapore, caregivers of persons with disabilities, mental health conditions, or seniors, we can gather at a carnival to learn. There'll be talks, there'll be goodie bags, there'll be game booth, resource booth. So please, caregivers, come and enjoy yourself. Bring your families, friends. Come and join the fun.
Yeah.
Celebrate caregiving.
Oh, that's really wonderful. Dr. Lim, you obviously do not have just 24 hours in a day. It's very obvious now.
Yeah, very blessed with good support.
That's so important, isn't it?
Yes.
I like how you've actually expanded the definition of what a caregiver is. It's no longer, the activities are no longer for just people with disability, but also the elderly, people who just need some kind of help at home as well.
Yeah.
So it's so much more inclusive. I love that.
Yes, because I think people have this idea that caregivers are a person who is just delivering the care to someone who is, can't do things for themselves. But actually, caregivers do a lot more. Last night also, with the launch of the care conference, we launched something called, actually 2 things, very useful guide. I'm so excited. It's called a Caregiver Learning Guide.
Hey, that's great.
And within that guide, it's a simple book, but there's a lot of stories in there that talks about the different types of caregivers. Caregivers of persons with seniors, mental health, caregivers of persons with disability. What is the journey we go through?
Yeah.
So there are stories in there to illustrate what the caregivers have to do.
Wow.
And it really shows that as a caregiver, we do a lot of things, not just delivering care. We have to coordinate care.
Yes. Wow.
When the diagnosis comes to us, we have to, take in the information, learn about it. Then we have to think about what changes we have to make through the person's life that we're caring for and our own lives. How do we coordinate the logistics? How do we do medications and things like that?
Wow.
So how do you modify the home? So there are a lot of balls to juggle as caregivers.
Of course. And this book is very comprehensive. It covers all of that. Where can they get it? Where can we...
this is done by AIC and SG Enable.
Okay.
It's a joint effort. So they launched it last night. And inside there, of course, they mentioned step 1. They also mentioned another resource that I'm also very excited. That is that one is focusing on persons with disabilities. So that is called the Caregiver Learning Roadmap.
Ooh.
So that one is a very good interactive web page resource for caregivers or persons with disability.
Okay.
So do go check out these wonderful resources. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, congratulations on that.
Thank
Not
you.
one, but two. Oh, hello.
Lots of efforts going into this area.
Yeah.
Henry on Facebook wants to know, are there other courses for caregiving for elderly or seniors?
Oh, there's actually a lot. I mean, Caring SG, we focus on people with disabilities, but we have like a sister organization. We call it, they call it actually CAL, Caregivers Alliance Limited. So this organization looks after those caregivers of seniors as well as caregivers of mental health. And there are a lot of other organizations, social service agencies that actually run programs that is administered by AIC and SG Enable to look after caregivers as well. So just go to Enabling Guide, go to AIC Care Service Recommender. There are lots and lots of services out there. So caregivers, don't feel alone. You are here. We are here for you. Yeah.
Aw, it's like sending a warm fuzzy hug out on air.
Can you see her
That's why I'm
wings?
yellow.
I'm yellow today.
You are really bringing a lot of bright cheeriness into the studio. We're going to head back on air, and I think that's something we want to share with everyone, especially about Henry's question as well. So come and join us on 1FM 91.3. Hey guys, a little bit of a button mispress there.
They jumped up and swapped places.
No,
I
they
saw.
didn't. They didn't. It was
I
my
saw.
finger. Thank you, Carol. That's really kind of you to say that. But that was a button mispress on my part. So we will go back on air after the song by Eurasia with Always. So let's carry on our chat here. So these resources, the book is available. It's free for download? Or?
It's on the web,
web
internet.
book?
Yeah, so it's you can actually download.
Where can you show me or not?
I think you just Google caregiver learning guide.
Caregiver learning guide.
That's easy to find. That's
Okay.
easy to find. How long did it take you to come up with this book, to gather all these stories from various caregivers, in various situations?
I found it. Okay.
Hey.
The learning roadmap. Yeah, this is from SG Enable.
Oh.
And the learning guide. It should be.
Handbook. No.
No.
We will get the details for everybody.
yes,
So
yes.
these are the two things that I think would be, they will become sort of the Bible for
Yes,
caregivers in Singapore, and who knows, even around the world. I think you can never ever be short of resources, and the fact that it came from caregivers, you really are in good hands. Wow, I'm going to
Yeah.
study this. So Henry, I would recommend you go and check that out, as well as the causes that Dr. Lim pointed out to everyone. So we carry on. Yeah,
Henry
this chat.
actually wants to know,
Yeah.
are there courses for caregivers?
Oh yes. So
Yeah.
step one is the one by
For people who want to learn how to be a caregiver.
Yes, there is. So for step one, it's the one that it's for caregivers or persons with disabilities or new to developmental disabilities like children with development needs. So for those, you go step one. For caregivers of persons with mental health or seniors issues, you can go to CAL, which is Caregivers Alliance Limited. They conduct courses as well for caregivers. And if you go to the websites, there will also be other courses conducted by other agencies. There is actually a grant called Caregivers Training Grant.
Okay.
Yeah, administered by AIC.
Oh, wow.
You can just Google Caregivers Training Grant. You can apply
Nice.
for it and use that. There are a list of courses that caregivers can go for. So for seniors, there are courses that teach you how to maybe even care for the seniors at home.
Yeah, like even how to kind of pick them up
Yes,
off the
lift
chair.
them up,
There
or,
are usually
yes,
proper
moving
techniques,
them
or even
around.
from the ground. You know,
Exactly.
it gets a bit complicated. So
Yes,
these courses
yes.
would be great. I didn't
Yes.
know there was such
There
things.
are many courses nowadays. Yes.
Okay, so we're going to share that as well. For real this time. Sorry, guys. For real this time on air and 1FM 91.3. Come and join us on air. I will make sure I press the right button. There we go. That's Erasure with Always here on the Bright Side, and it is always a huge pleasure to have Dr. Lim with us. Welcome back to the Bright Side and on 1FM. Dr. Lim Hong Hui here to talk about, yes, her very, very important role as CEO of Caring SG. Much to celebrate, launched 2 great resources for caregivers in Singapore. We've got the guidebook as well as the roadmap. It's an online interactive sort of resource for all caregivers. Congratulations on that.
Thank
Just
you,
launched
thank you.
last night.
Yes.
So this month is a very busy month for you. A lot's going on for Caring SG. But right now, we want to share with you a great question from one of our Brightsiders, Henry.
Yeah, so Henry wants to know how he can learn about caregiving. Yeah.
Yes, there are many courses on the internet. I mean, well, you can go to the websites and you just Google caregiver training grant, and within there you can find a list of courses that caregivers can go for, sign up, and use the grant to go for these courses. So there are courses to help you understand children with developmental needs. There are also courses to help with mental health conditions and elderly care. Caring SG has our own course, called Step 1, for young parents and new parents where children are first diagnosed to have developmental issues. Yeah, so there are a lot of things that can be learned. Yeah.
And I think because of your organization and what you have done, there's definitely a lot more available to caregivers
Yes,
right
yes,
now. I think just head on over to Caring SG, and it's a great place for you to start from if you are in that situation. And it can be really overwhelming, but I
Yes.
think the support that you guys give is just amazing.
Thank you.
Dr. Lim, can I ask you, you're a caregiver yourself. I mean, a lot of us have been in that position. If we spot a friend or someone who is a caregiver and struggling, how should we help support them?
Firstly, the first thing is to be a friend. Okay, so ask how are you, what happened at home, then be a good listener. So be empathetic and listen, and then chime in with to say, how can I help? Right? I mentioned the earlier 2 resources, caregiver learning guide as well as caregiver learning roadmap. Now, those 2 resources are not done by Caring SG, but they actually went to a lot of caregivers to get all these resources up. So it's done by AIC as well as SG Enable. So
Oh,
I need to
wonderful.
clarify. Yeah. But Caring SG has been helping them to also, get caregivers to give feedback. So these are the resources you can go to. And for families and friends, if you go to the Caregiver Learning Guide, you will see stories about what the caregivers will need to cope with. And with that knowledge, you will be able to ask clever questions like, oh, how are you managing the logistics? How are you dealing with the medications? How are your conversations with your family? Do you, so be that part of that journey.
Yeah.
So family, friends, get yourself acquainted with caregiving. Read about
point.
it, and then don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah.
Just be there for them.
That's a very good point that you
Yeah.
bring out, that, although this is a guidebook for caregivers, those around the caregivers should also read it up.
Yes.
I have a question, but we're going to take this on to Facebook Live. What if the person says, no, I don't need your help? Some people are just, they're feeling a bit shy about it, or they're headstrong about it. Do we continue to push on to offer our help, So let's take that question onto our Facebook Live. Everyone come and join us, facebook.com/1FM913. And the correct button pushing continues. Happy to report that.
Claps, 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 claps.
Okay, welcome back. Facebook Live with the Bright Side and Dr. Lim Hong Hui, wearing her hat, one of the many hats, as CEO of Caring SG. So early on, really great question from Carol about, should we, when we see a friend around us, a loved one around us struggling in the role of caregiving, how do we help them? So we get great tips about how we should understand what caregiving is all about before we can, and just be a good listener, right?
Yes.
So what about in the case we can still see they're really struggling, they're overwhelmed, they can't even rationalize what's going on in their lives, and they have refused our help. What do we do? Do we
Yeah.
back off?
Okay, so if you speak to your colleague or friend and you know that they are struggling, but yet they are not telling you much about it, it's okay. You just say, anytime you need to talk to someone, I'm here. I may not know exactly what you're going through, but I'm your friend. Just feel free to talk to me. So being available, that's one, right? Then the next thing is you can also ask, if the person say, oh, you may not understand, then you can say, how about you go and find other caregivers to talk to.
Yeah.
That's why peer support group is very important. Nowadays, there are WhatsApp, Telegram, Facebook, lots and lots of caregiver support group. If you go to Enabling Guide, there's a list of support groups, I think, including elderly care. There's like 50 over support groups listed.
Oh,
there.
wow.
Yes, for different conditions. Caring SG ourselves, we have about 25 support groups for different diagnoses. Epilepsy, ADHD, autism, dyslexia,
That's
GDD.
amazing.
Yeah, so we basically help parents to find a group that they're comfortable to talk to.
Amazing.
Yeah, and really it's just as friends is just being there and continue to check in. So once you show your sincerity and your willingness to help, caregivers will open up. Sometimes they are just still grieving or coping with it themselves and they're afraid to show their vulnerability. It's okay, right? We wait for them.
So it's like building a little bit more trust, right?
Yes,
So that they can then open up.
I feel like caregivers like a different breed of people altogether because they're going through so much and they know that as a caregiver to their wards, right? And it's such a lot of work. It's sometimes a burden, like a physical and emotional burden that they don't want to burden other people with it as well. So they keep it all in and they don't want to share because they know it's a lot to take on.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's one of the things. It's also part of, I'm not sure, is it Asian? We tend to a lot of caregivers are parents or daughters-in-law or siblings, so we don't feel good complaining about our struggle. But sometimes it's not, caregivers have to change our own mindset. It's not about complaining. It is about sharing what you have gone through. And through that, sometimes through sharing, you will learn more about yourself.
Yeah.
And you find resources.
Yeah.
So it's about caregivers willing to take that step out as well. So I would encourage caregivers
It
to
also,
be...
it also
to be
helps people
open.
around you understand what it is that you're going
Yes,
through because it's like sometimes seriously like a lot and then you don't tell people, like say your children, it's like how are they supposed to know that
Exactly.
the medication alone is enough to just wipe you out because there's so many. That in itself is stressful.
Yes. I actually look after my mother-in-law with dementia and breast cancer for about 9 months when she was first diagnosed. And yes, the medications, the procedure, she had the operations, had to do the drainage. And But I at that moment, I just want to get it done and I don't want to spend my emotion or time thinking about it. But I would encourage every caregiver to do that processing and that getting that support when you are ready, because it's important for us as a person. And it's important for family and friends and caregivers ourselves to realize that we ourselves are still human beings. We need to be cared for too. We're not just a robot doing work. So I think we have to value ourselves as a person and the people around us to see us as a person and not just a role. Yeah, so that's why to me it's important to not just look at caregivers of disabilities, caregivers of mental health, caregivers of seniors. A lot of times a caregiver of disability is also a caregiver of seniors, and they're just a human being.
That's true.
I have a question, actually, a quick one. We see a rise in mental health issues like depression and anxiety, and then sometimes your spouse now is also thrown into a position of caregiving.
Yes.
Is that being addressed somehow, or is there support for that?
Mental health issue is really rising, in Singapore, and even suicide rate is going up. So I think the ministries are actually looking into it. There is the mental health work group that look into how to deal with that. For persons with disabilities, actually the caregivers have higher level of stress and higher incidence of mental health illness. Suicide rate is also higher. So I think disability caregiving is one really tough job, but certainly for seniors and mental health, they're also higher risk.
I definitely want to have you talk about that again as we head back on air to 1FM at 91.3. A very inspiring individual who is definitely lifting us today is Dr. Lim Hong Hui. Just like that song we just enjoyed from the Lighthouse family, Lifted, you are our beacon of inspiration and light, and still so humble. Stop it.
She is. I feel like we're talking to an angel. Like you wonder what an angel looks like. It sounds like it's Dr. Lim. Really? Yeah.
It's a good point. See, if I Google angel,
her face comes up.
oh, that's right. Yeah.
I think my children will see a different thing.
Hey, no, yeah, you know what? Children will only say that because they feel very comfortable with you.
Thank you.
And very safe with you.
Send them to us. 10 minutes later, they'll be like, oh yes, mom is the angel. Correct. Correct.
When they're not angry with me, they say, "Mommy, you're the best."
Great question from you about the rise of mental health
issues here in Singapore. You know, we're seeing a rise in depression and anxiety amongst individuals. And so, you know, are we looking into, your spouse might now be a caregiver because your partner is dealing with some severe or serious mental health issues. How are we supporting that? Are we looking into that area of caregiving too?
Yeah, so mental health illness is really rising. Even among the caregivers or persons with disability, the incidence of anxiety, depression is quite high. I would say in my personal experience, it's about 50%. And quite a number, probably close to 10% at least, have suicidal ideations because it's just so tough for caregivers or persons with disabilities. But there are also rising, incidents of mental health illnesses among the caregivers for other areas like mental health illness or seniors as well. So the government has been looking into setting up work groups for mental health. So there are efforts in this area. So if you go to I think it's mind.sg is one of those resource page for mental health as well. So that could be an area that you can get help. So lots and lots of resources out there in mind.sg.
Okay. But here's the thing. I'm sure burnout happens a lot with caregivers, right? And sometimes the caregivers, they might not be aware that it's happening to them. And also, even if they are aware, like, what can you do? They have to carry on, right? So what can be done by the caregiver, by those around them? If we spot burnout, what do we do?
Okay, firstly, family and friends around who spot that a caregiver is not coping well, it's always important to check in and say, hey, how are you feeling? I can help, just let me know how to help. So offer help. For the caregivers, it's important to develop that internal thermometer. If you find yourself busting out in anger or crying for no reasons, or getting very snappy, those are signs of burnout. Or if you can't sleep, you worry, those are signs that you are actually having some kind of mental health, depression or anxiety. So having that internal monitor to say, hey, I need help, it's very important. So growing that insight. So for those who are around caregivers who may not, if the caregiver themselves doesn't have the insight, then it's important to check in. So the other important person, like the spouse. So it's really quite important to have this family to wrap around the persons with disabilities and the caregivers.
Hey, actually, good point. I mean, we speak about caregivers here, but sometimes those around the caregivers are also impacted, right? So it's just to keep an eye on everyone. I think it's great that you're coming here, and we are just made so much more aware of the whole situation, the big picture in it all. We also have much to celebrate because, as you've pointed out, this month of November is Caregiving Month. And a lot of exciting activities coming up. Please share it with us.
Okay, so I mentioned earlier on that there's a care conference that happened yesterday where there's lots of 300 over care professionals and caregivers. We gather to learn from overseas models and looking into Singapore's models and what is the future for us. So great learning yesterday. In the next 3 Saturdays, this Saturday at Enabling Village, then next Saturday at Kampong Emirati, and the following Saturday in Heartbeat Bedok, we're going to have National Care Carnivals. So at the carnival, there'll be talks, there'll be performances by people with disabilities and their caregivers. There'll also be resource booths, goodie bags, free ice creams, open house tours, game booths. So caregivers of persons with disability, mental health, seniors can all gather together with the public to celebrate caregiving and to encourage each other.
I like that. Celebrate caregiving because it's so important. And we've all been there, you know, and maybe now, maybe in the future. I think this is really great what you're doing, just creating that kind of awareness, you know, and having all the resources just at our fingertips. Dr. Lim, I really do salute you.
It's a pleasure. It's an honor to serve.
Yeah, for joining us here, you know, coming back to share even more. What you do is really, really significant.
I really appreciate what you've done, actually. You know, you were previously the chairman of the board and now you're the CEO of Caring SG, because there is so much. You want to be on the ground. It sounds like you want to be there and you want to help effect change as soon as possible and as quickly as possible. Because you see, there's nothing like a person wanting to be on the ground, you know, being in touch with what's happening with reality. So thank you so much for that. You're so passionate and so giving yourself. We really appreciate your work.
Thank you very much.
1FM 91.3. Good time. 1FM 91.